At my daughter's school play, I reserved front row seats and showed up an hour early. When I got back from the bathroom, my mother-in-law was sitting there with her friends. "We needed a better view," she said. I sat in the back. Afterward, my daughter asked why I didn't wave during her solo. My husband said, "You could have stood up." I didn't say a word. That night, I quietly packed a bag. 2 days later, I filed for separation. I never thought I'd be the one telling a story like this. I spent most of my life trying to be easy to get along with. I thought if I kept my head down, smiled enough, worked hard enough, things would just work out. I thought my husband, Todd, and I were a team. I thought his mother, Ruth, living with us after her surgery was just a temporary thing. I thought a lot of things. Then came the school play. Macy is my world. She's 8 years old, the sweetest kid you could ever meet. She spent weeks practicing for that third-grade play. Every night after dinner, she'd stand in the living room, holding a hairbrush like a microphone, and sing her little heart out. She was so proud when she told me she had a solo. I promised her I would be right there in the front row, cheering her on. And I meant it. I made a plan. Took half a day off from my job at the dentist's office. Picked up a little bouquet of flowers at the grocery store. Even made little reserved for Macy's mom signs to tape onto the seats, just in case. I pulled into the school parking lot a full hour before doors even opened. I wasn't taking any chances. When the janitor unlocked the auditorium doors at 5:30, I was the first one in. I grabbed 3 front row seats, one for me, one for Todd if he actually showed up on time, and one extra just in case Macy needed it after the play. I laid my jackets across the seats, taped the signs down, sat there, guarding them like a hawk. Parents started trickling in. I smiled and nodded but kept my body language clear. These seats are taken. At around 6:10, with 20 minutes to go before showtime, I realized I should hit the bathroom. I hesitated. My gut told me not to leave, even for a second. But I figured, it's a school event. Who would seriously mess with reserved seats? I walked quickly down the hall to the bathroom, did my business, and rushed back. When I came back around the corner and into the auditorium, I stopped dead in my tracks. My stuff was gone. No jackets. No programs. No signs. And sitting there, chatting like queens on their thrones, were Ruth and 2 of her friends, women she knew from her ladies' Bible study. I stared. For a second, I actually thought maybe I had the wrong row. But no, it was my row. My seat. I walked over, heart pounding. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice calm. These seats were reserved. Ruth didn't even blink. She gave me this fake little smile, the kind that never touched her eyes, and said, "We needed a better view. You can find another spot, dear." Dear. She said it like she was patting a dog on the head. I looked at her friends. They didn't say a word. Just looked at me like I was the rude one for interrupting their evening. I opened my mouth and then closed it. The auditorium was packed now. Families everywhere. No empty seats up front. Just a few stragglers in the very back row, near the exit doors. I felt the blood drain from my face. I could have made a scene. I could have demanded they move. But all I could think about was Macy. If I caused a commotion, if I got thrown out, who would she see when she stepped onto that stage? So I turned. I walked all the way to the back row. I sat down. Alone. The lights dimmed. The curtain opened. Macy came out, smiling nervously at the crowd. She sang beautifully. My heart swelled and ached at the same time. When it came time for her solo, she walked to the edge of the stage. And she scanned the front row. Looking, searching. Her little face fell. Just a little, a flicker, but I saw it. I waved my arms from the back. She didn't see. She sang her solo anyway, her voice trembling at first, then gaining strength. She was so brave. After the play, Macy ran up to me, her eyes wide. "Mommy, I didn't see you. I was looking for you. Why didn't you wave?" I bent down and hugged her tight. Before I could answer, Todd came up behind us, wearing his usual tired scowl. "You could have stood up," he said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Like I had failed her. I looked at him. I looked at Ruth, who was standing nearby, laughing with her friends, not even glancing at us. And something inside me snapped. I didn't say a word. I kissed Macy on the head, told her how proud I was, got her a cookie and some punch. That night, after everyone was asleep, I packed a small bag. Just the essentials. I didn't slam doors. I didn't cry. 2 days later, while Todd was at work, I went down to the courthouse and filed for separation. When he came home that night, the papers were sitting on the kitchen table. He stared at them like he didn't understand what he was seeing. I told him I'd be staying with my sister for a while. Told him he could keep the house, keep the memories. I didn't want them anymore. At first, Todd barely reacted. He picked up the papers, skimmed them, and set them down like it was some joke I was playing. He actually chuckled a little and said, "You'll get over it." I didn't answer. I just picked up my bag and walked out the door. My sister, Natalie, lived about 20 minutes away in College Station. She had a tiny guest room with a lumpy old futon, but it was mine for as long as I needed. The first night I stayed there, I cried so hard my ribs hurt. The second night, I didn't cry at all. The third night, I started making lists. Real ones. On paper. Things I would never accept again. Being treated like an afterthought, being blamed for other people's cruelty, staying silent to keep the peace, things I needed to fix. Get a lawyer, find a better job, figure out custody for Macy. I thought Todd would call. I thought maybe he'd show up, yelling, apologizing, something. Instead, he sent a text, "You're being dramatic. Think about Macy. Think about Macy." Like I hadn't been thinking about her every second. The next blow came fast. Todd's lawyer served me with papers of his own, pushing for full custody. His claim? That I abandoned the family. That I was unstable. Ruth must have been helping him write every word. I showed the papers to my sister, hands shaking. "They're trying to erase me," I whispered. Natalie looked me dead in the eye. "Then don't let them." I hired a lawyer the next day. Every penny I had went into that retainer. I started documenting everything. The nights Todd didn't come home till 2 a.m. The texts he ignored. The parent-teacher meetings he skipped. I got statements from Macy's teachers about who showed up to school events. Me. Always me. I kept receipts, photos, anything that showed what life was really like before that night at the play. Meanwhile, Ruth started showing up everywhere. At the school, volunteering in Macy's class. At church, talking loudly about how heartbreaking it was when Macy's mother left. She smiled at me whenever she saw me. That same cold smile from the auditorium. And Todd? He started parading around town with Ruth on his arm, like she was his new wife. It was sickening. One Saturday morning, I went to pick Macy up for my scheduled visit. Ruth opened the door. Not Todd. Ruth. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "You're 5 minutes early," she said. "Maybe come back at the right time." I could hear Macy inside, calling for me. I gritted my teeth and said, "I'm not leaving without my daughter." Ruth narrowed her eyes and hissed. Actually hissed, "You're ruining everything." I didn't move. After a long, tense minute, she slammed the door in my face. A few seconds later, Todd opened it, shrugging like he didn't know what just happened. "You don't have to make a scene," he muttered. That was the moment I realized they weren't just trying to punish me. They were trying to erase me. Make it look like Macy didn't even need me anymore. I took Macy's hand and walked away without saying a word. Later that night, I told my lawyer everything. He leaned back in his chair, shook his head, and said, "They want a war? We'll give them one." And that's when I knew I wasn't just leaving my old life behind. I was burning it to the ground. We started gathering evidence like stacking firewood before a storm. Everything Ruth and Todd thought they were getting away with, I made sure there was a record. Natalie helped too. She'd sit with me at night, cross-referencing text messages, Facebook posts, school schedules. That's how we found the first real crack. Ruth had been posting pictures of Macy all over Facebook, pictures from school events I wasn't even told about. Parent breakfasts, field trips, classroom parties. Events I never got an invite for. Events I would have killed to be at. But there they were. Photos of Ruth, beaming next to my daughter, tagging herself as Macy's primary caregiver. Primary caregiver. The words made my stomach flip. It was almost like Ruth was trying to build a case that she was the mother now. I printed every single post. My lawyer smiled when I dropped the thick stack on his desk. This, he said, is gold. We added it to the custody file. Proof that not only were Todd and Ruth trying to sideline me, they were actively blocking me from parenting. A few weeks later, the court ordered a temporary custody hearing. That morning, I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down my skirt with shaking hands. I didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked bad, but because for once, I looked strong. When we walked into that courtroom, Ruth and Todd were already sitting there, smug and whispering. I didn't look at them. I kept my eyes on the judge. When Todd's lawyer started talking, it was all the same garbage. I abandoned the home. I disrupted Macy's life. I was unstable. But then it was my turn. My lawyer stood up and calmly laid everything out. Documented nights Todd wasn't home. Teacher statements about who attended parent-teacher meetings. All the Facebook posts showing Ruth overstepping. A copy of Macy's school records, emergency contact listed as Ruth first, not me. The judge's face darkened when he saw that last one. When Ruth took the stand, she tried to play innocent. I only did what I thought was best for the child, she said, blinking fake tears. My lawyer asked, did you ever ask Macy's mother for permission to attend these events in her place? Ruth froze. Did you ever inform her that these events were happening? Silence. The judge leaned forward. Mrs. Ruth's last name, are you suggesting you have been acting as this child's legal guardian? I was helping, she stammered. They needed help. Who is they? My son, she blurted. And what about the mother? The judge asked coldly. Ruth didn't answer. The courtroom went dead silent. That afternoon, the judge granted me temporary primary custody of Macy, pending a full evaluation. Todd looked like he had been punched. Ruth looked like she might actually faint. I didn't celebrate. I just gathered my papers, hugged Macy tightly, and walked out of there like a soldier coming off a battlefield. But the war wasn't over. The next week, the Rial bomb dropped. Natalie called me at work, her voice sharp with excitement. You're not gonna believe this, she said. Check your email. Now. I pulled it up. Attached was a photo. A security camera shot. Clear as day. It showed Todd kissing another woman. Not just any woman, one of Ruth's church friends. The same woman who had been sitting in one of the stolen seats that night at the play. The same woman who had looked at me like I was trash. They had been carrying on for months. Long before I packed my bag. Long before Ruth ever moved in. I sat back in my chair, heart hammering. All the pieces clicked into place. Todd didn't think I'd get over it because he had already moved on. Ruth wasn't just helping Todd stay afloat. She was helping him start a new life without me. And they thought they were untouchable. They thought wrong. The minute I had that photo, I knew what I had to do. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't text Todd some long, angry message. I made a copy of the photo. Then I made about 50 more. And the next time we had a custody hearing, I slid the copies across the lawyer's desk. Todd looked confused. Then he looked down. And he turned white. His lawyer whispered something harsh to him, but it was too late. The judge had already seen it. Not just infidelity, but lying under oath. He had sworn our marriage had been fine before I left. That there had been no issues. That I had walked away from a happy home. The judge's voice was cold when she spoke. I'm ordering a full investigation into Mr. Todd's last name, S conduct, and living environment. Temporary full custody will remain with the mother until further notice. Ruth jumped up in the courtroom. "This is unfair," she shouted. "She's manipulating everything." The judge banged her gavel so hard Ruth actually flinched. "Sit down, or you will be removed." That day ended the way all bad things do, not with a big explosion, but with a slow, cold crumbling. Todd lost his shot at full custody. Ruth was banned from having unsupervised visits with Macy. And me? I walked out of that courthouse holding my daughter's hand tight in mine. I didn't go back to Todd. I didn't try to fix a marriage that should have ended years ago. Instead, I built something new. Something for me and Macy. It wasn't easy. We lived in Natalie's guest room for 6 months while I saved up for a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. I picked up more hours at the dental office. Started taking online classes at night. I wasn't perfect. Some days I missed Todd, or maybe just the dream I had once believed in. Some days I wondered if I had stayed too quiet for too long, let too many small things slide. Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe the seat stealing, the betrayal, the lies, maybe it had all started with 1,000 little moments where I didn't stand up for myself. But standing in the back of that auditorium that night had taught me something. If you don't take up space in your own life, someone else will. And they won't be kind about it. Now, when Macy has a recital, I'm right there in the front row. I don't leave my seat. I don't move for anyone. When she sings, she sees me smiling back at her. And when the music stops and she waves from the stage, I wave back with both hands, tears running down my face. Because I'm there. And this time, nobody's stealing my seat. Not ever again.